Hello, everyone. This is Straight No Chaser podcast. I am one of your aunties, Auntie Lynn Reese. I am an author and a poet and a mother, grandmother. I'm here with Miss Helen J. Collier, writer extraordinaire, writer of 9 or 10, maybe 15 titles by now, um, and with Miss Leslie Montgomery, who's world traveler. Her
Mhm.
hobbies are traveling, writing, making people feel good. Anyway, we are your aunties. Tonight we're going to be talking about motherhood. It's something that we all share, and we all navigate differently. So without further ado, Miss Helen J. Collier is going to present to you tonight, and then we'll get started in conversation. Helen, you are on.
Thank you. I'm Helen J. Collier. I am a Black American writer, and I am here tonight to lead the discussion on motherhood. A mother can be biological, abdo- uh, adaptive, or a woman who provides for a child, such as a foster mother. All in all, a mother is a female who nourishes the life of a child in her care. As an American Black mother realizing how our history is being erased, it would be unworthy of me if I didn't speak of my female ancestors who were mothers. Theirs are the shoulders we as Black mothers now stand on. They paved the way for us who came after them. If their history is erased, it will nullify how we evolved as Black mothers and what it meant for our female ancestors stepping into the role of mothers as slaves owned by slave owners in this country. Many were becoming mothers before they walked through the doors of no return in Ghana onto the ocean where slave ships awaited them. If the slave owner didn't cut the infant out of their bodies for public viewing to evoke fear, the mothers were allowed to carry their babies until they were born. Our mothers' ancestors had no say in what happened to their babies, whom they gave birth to. Their first prayer was that they would not be taken from them and sold. If that happened, they would never see their babies grow into adulthood, would, would have no part in how they developed, or if they would live. And if they did, what horrors would become of them they could not protect them from. When President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, slavery turned into freedom. Our mother ancestors were allowed to keep their babies who could no longer be sold. Many searched trying to find their babies that were sold away from them during slavery. Soon, Jim Crow laws were enacted that cut off all protection for them and their children. Many nights and days they were on their knees praying that their children would not be hung, tarred, and feathered or murdered simply because their skin was darker than that of the white person who saw them as sport to be preyed upon for fun. I remember the elders speaking of standing on the porch, their hearts pounding as they waited anxiously for one or more of their children who they had sent to the store, telling them not to stop and play, but to hurry back home so that their mothers would be assured they were still alive. They knew if their child had been hurt or killed by a white perpetrator, nothing would be done to the person or persons who had committed the murder. If a child came up missing, no white law authorities would bother to search for the black child. After Emmett Till was murdered in Mississippi, my mother would never allow my brother to visit my grandfather in Louisiana or any southern state without her being with him. My friend Jo shared with me that her grandmother lost her mind climbing the walls while screaming, "Don't let the white man kill my children." She said seeing it broke her heart. As you can see, life for our mother ancestors, even after slavery, was staring at the horrors of strange fruits hanging on tree limbs after their sons returned from fighting for the freedom of another country. Nothing but tragedies awaited those mothers, knowing that even the Supreme Court judges condoned the Jim Crow laws that caused their suffering. No police would charge no police would charge a white person with a crime if they hurt or killed their children. They were forced to obey all the laws while no law protected them or their children. They knew they might never see their child again if they didn't come home. Some mothers whipped their children harshly when they disobeyed them, hoping it would deter them from doing something that would get them hung or sent to prison for years, even if the crime was as minor as stealing a pack of cigarettes and the child was 12 or 13 years old. Sometimes their homes or land would be taken to pay for to keep their children from being sent to prison work farms to stay there for years with no possibility of getting out. The labor was needed and now it could be used as punishments in the penal system. Some mothers believe that if they educated their children, they would receive the treatment as whites in this country, not realizing that their success at anything would not be valued. Even descendants of slaves with white skin were not allowed in the white race once it was known that someone in the family was colored, as we were called back in the day. Mothers had to live with the knowledge that even a white man forcibly or otherwise who fathered their children was something they needed not to admit to. She had to hope some black man would claim them as his, or she faced them being fatherless with no child support the white man had to pay. If all this history is erased, many will tell you that all black mothers are immigrants who came to this country to find freedom. The truth is, our female ancestors were brought to these shores so that any man, their owners allowed to use their body to produce free labor with up to 20 or more babies produced by one mother, working free until they took their last breath. Now, my two younger aunties will join me to continue our discussion of motherhood.
Mhm. Thank you for that.
Hold on, yeah. I'm gonna change this so that we can all be seen. Can you see all three of us?
Hmm.
Thank you. Miss Helen, what made you go down that path when you were writing,
Because
starting from history?
I would never forget the trials and tribulations of my mother. And you know what really captivated me was my godson. I had told, his birthday came and I unable to get with him. And I had been working on this. And we went to lunch and he started asking me about history. What happened to the people? Was it really true that there was plantations? Was it true that the people that mothers had to do had to their kids were taken from them? Was it true that they? And I'm sitting at there. He's 25 years old, and I'm saying, I'm going down the right path because he doesn't have any clue. And
Mhm.
so, and as I said in my delivery, if I don't give honor to my to the hardship and the struggles of my female mothers in this country and what they went through, I can't really tell my story because if you don't know your history, you're always doomed to repeat it. And if you know that what your mothers and your ancestors, female ancestors has gone through, you know how important it is for you to maintain that struggle, maintain that vigilance, understanding that it is important that the part you play in your children's lives. Does that answer your question, or am I not on? I can't hear you.
Yeah, I said that answers my question. I was just wondering, um, because when we talk about motherhood, you talk about a lot of times just the relationship that we have with our mother. And you don't necessarily think about what other mothers have gone through or the history of motherhood. I mean, you know what I mean? Goes back
Hmm.
to Eve, right? Um, and so I thought that that was just really kind of poignant the way that you brought it out. going back in history and the things that mothers had to endure, Black mothers especially
Hmm.
had to endure to even try to have a semblance of motherhood, I guess.
Right.
Uh, and I'm thinking of, like you talked about, like mothers who were enslaved and would not necessarily even know their kids, right? But became
Right.
mothers to other children, or like you were saying, foster care or adoption or things like that. And back then it wasn't either foster care or adoption. It was just you did what you had to do to survive and then try to in hopes that you did something for somebody else's child and maybe your kids are okay. Yeah.
Knowing that you did something for someone else's child, knowing that your kid you would never see, in your heart praying that you would see it, but really knowing that that door was closed for you, that you'd never see that child again. So you would gravitate to any child that was there, that was near. And mostly it was children who were sickly, who couldn't be sold or had no value. But you mothered whoever it was who needed mothering, and you still suffered with that spiritual devastation of having your child sold to a place, or where a place was like when you went through the door onto that slave ship, you knew that door was closed and it would never open. So you knew when the child was when the your owner took your child and sold it, you would never ever see it again. And it was a part of you, your heart that burned, that was that pain that was there always. Each one that left, some mothers would run off to try to keep their babies, and then they would be captured, and the babies would be sold anyway. But the pain of that you nerves for 9 months, and that's all the nerves you can give that child, or maybe you had it for 3 months, and all of a sudden the owner come and said, he's going somewhere else, and you cry and beg and plead on your knees, and it was no avail. So you did gravitate to any um, child or
Right.
being that you could
Yeah.
give comfort to.
Yeah. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit um from that. And I wanna and thank you for sharing that and kind of giving that history too. But I wanna switch gears and ask you both um what your relationship was like with your mother and how do you think that affected your parenting?
Mm. Well, I want to first say that before we switch gears, I appreciate this lens that Miss Helen brings us like this vivid picture um, of our history as Black women and being mothers and being just women, period. Whether are a natural mother to two or three children or you have adopted or whatnot, but being able um, to get a clear picture, even because it's sad to say, first of all, that a lot of Black folks don't know their history, you know, um, and and it's so many facets to our history, but that in and of itself, I'm 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 really appreciative, even though I do know my history and I have studied a lot about it, and um it's good for those who don't know, uh, for them to be able to see through your lens, Miss Helen. So thank you for that, because a lot of people don't know, what our ancestors did have to endure. And with my mother and my grandmother being from the South, and my grandmother's oldest sister who passed at 99, like some of the stories, it makes me think even more so just hearing what you have said. And it's because you look so young that I forget. You have lived a good long life and have experienced things that I have not experienced. And so I just want to say I appreciate that. My relationship with my own mother, as I've said before, I'm the baby of her four children. So I was always spoiled rotten. And um, but as I think back right now on my own mother, she was a single mom. She raised all of her children. There was never a man who lived in our house with us, even though she was with a man for over 2 decades, very present in our lives. But my mom worked hard. Um, she she was loving, but I think in her effort to provide for her children a better life and continue striving for more, you know, her way of showing love looked different. We spoke about love before, and love looks different to everyone. Me, I believe that I was fortunate, because I was the baby, and I always got the attention, the physical attention, the just everything. But what I right now today at 53, when I look at my mom's passed on, um, and I can remember her being a really, really good mom, a woman who didn't give up, a woman who worked hard every day to provide for her children, no matter where we stayed in the process of moving upward on the ladder of success, if you will. Um, we never went without anything. We always had. My mom she was a good mom. She was a good mom to me. I felt loved. I felt supported. Um, and so when I think about our relationship and when I first decided to have a baby at 21, and my mom was like, "You don't need no baby. You still a baby and you don't need no baby." And I was like, "But I'm gonna have a baby." um but I think what I learned from her and watching her mother her children through the good, the bad, the ugly, the whoopings, the everything. Okay, she was from Holly Springs, Mississippi, and did not play. And for real, I think that I have been able to um, in mothering my own children remind myself through the good, the bad, the when you have disagreements with your kids, you don't see eye to eye, they act in a fool and whatnot. I've always tried to remember I'm the parent though, and they're the kid, right? And so regardless of how long it may take for things to be ironed out, I still have to remain steadfast in that position as the mother. And that's hard to do sometimes, especially when your children get grown and they think that they can talk to you any kind of way, or they think that they're so grown that you can't tell them anything. That's a hard place to be. But yeah, I just I try to think on how my mom was with me and her own children, and then I just try to like do do that and then some.
Well, let me say that I was always my mother's child that questioned everything,
Mm,
that wanted to know, uh, why? Well, what's the reasoning? And
mm-hmm.
my mother just wasn't having it. She was a young girl when she married, and she married a man who was very abusive, and she took a penknife and stuck him so hard till his blood came out. And he said, if any woman that caused any blood to from my body, she's dead. So her friends hid her under their porch until he went to work, and and she drove the Greyhound bus and came to East St. Louis where I was brought up. We first lived in a boxcar with all that still had the railroad wheels. And my mother said to us, she said, it's not where you start off, it's where
Mm,
you end up. And so all her life she was doing making she she even though she had to she built her this is crazy because she had this the railroad land they allowed us to live on. She made gardens out of that, and then she
mm,
so she sold greens, all sort of things, just to keep us alive, just to keep things going for us, and told us you got to take care of each other. I can't do this by myself. You need to take care of each other. So she had my brother out there selling papers. And
mm.
when this older boy tried to take his money, my sister and I got bricks and said, if you take it, we're going to hit you in the head with these bricks. My sister couldn't come home, which was a year and a half younger than me. She couldn't go in the house and tell my mother I was out with her and somebody was beating on her. What? Where was your sister? So I had to take that role of we were protective. Three, a brother and two sisters. My brother and I were twins, but we had to take care of each other. My mother had she had a switch for us, and we
Mhm,
better not come home late after dark. Oh, I don't care what these other kids do out here. I'm telling you what you gonna do.
mhm,
That's what's gonna happen in here. And so
Right.
my brother, we didn't have a TV, and he would go down the street to watch TV. And my mother would have a switch whooping his butt every night, but every night he would go down and watch that TV and come back.
He said he gonna take a licking and keep on
He took
ticking,
his
huh?
whooping every night. So
Mm,
I can't say that we didn't have our trials and tribulations, but my mother was she didn't know how to drive, and she got her old car and got on back roads and taught herself to drive. When
mm,
we were coming up, she was just taking care of us. But soon as I finished high school, she started going to school herself. And so she was letting us know that, and we lived in a hard neighborhood. I mean, hard neighborhood. But her heart was good because there was a woman, I think she was native, and every weekend, my mother would open her door at 12 o'clock at night for this woman to come in because she was drunk. And my mother said, I'm not going to leave her out there for people to take, men to take advantage of. So
mm.
she found a place for her to stay. If somebody had a kid and they had to go to work, my mother would say, "Oh, bring that kid over here." And I'm telling you, one day I went by my mother's house and there was these three little white kids in the house. What them? She said their mother is in the hospital and their father has to work. Now, what do you think I'm gonna do?
Mm,
And
Yeah, that's like
and it's
My mom a lot of times would have my my brothers would bring kids home, you
mm,
know, and she'd make sure that she checked in with their parents. Um before they could, stay the night or anything like that. She wasn't going to be just harboring minors, but my mom and dad, they let a lot of kids in our house, and some of them became, foster kids, and some of them it was just, like a temporary, they stay in because they're having whatever is happening at their house. And sometimes they just knew that they could get a meal at our house, right? So my mom and my dad, I mean, we had so many kids. Even my cousins stayed with us for quite a while, you know.
mhm,
I remember my mom there was this one couple and they had three kids. I think they had another child since then. But when we were little, they would go at it, like fighting in front of the house and stuff. And my dad would just go out there, grab the kids, and, tell the guy, go on somewhere. and the kids and their mom, they would stay with us. And this happened over different periods of time when we lived in different houses, but
Mhm.
that's just the kind of you know mother, and my father would always support, but that's the kind of mother
Good.
my mom was. Leslie, my mom always
Mhm.
had somebody
Always got the
somebody else,
kids.
you know and it didn't matter. And I think that's one thing that I got from my mom is that if you come here, you'll at least get a plate,
Right.
you know. Um, and I think I got a little bit of that from my aunt too. Um, Aunt Ethel fed everybody, it seemed like, in her building, but and maybe my mom got some of that from her. Or um, my mom, I don't know if you, well, I think you both have read my mom's book,
Mm-hmm.
but my grandmother started writing the book before she passed away, and then my mom finished it posthumously, my grandmother. And so my mom says she's not sure how much of it is fiction and how much is nonfiction, but is written as fiction. But some of the in the story, it she remembers some of the things in the story paralleling her life, you know. But she wasn't raised by her biological mom. She was raised by her dad and her stepmom. But she started out her early years being raised by her great grandmother because her grandmother passed away when her mom was little, right? So, um, or not little, I think she was like a teen, maybe like 13. But I used to always think when I was younger, like, how could she just go off and leave her girls, especially girls, you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
with her grandmother who was blind, right? Um, and it wasn't until recent years that I started thinking my grandmother didn't have a mother
Mm-hmm.
for much of her because she was maybe 13. I think her sister was 15 or somewhere around there. Um, when their mom passed away, right? So when their mom passed away, their grandmother was raising them. 5 years later, my grandmother is married. 4 or 5 years later, she's married now to my grandfather, right? Um, and then, who knows what happened then, but I heard that, he wasn't the greatest of husbands, or, he was like a provider, but not the greatest. So you think back then, she's 13, by the time she's 16 or 17, she's married. She had my mom the day before her 18th birthday,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now thinking about that as an adult, as a woman, as a mom, thinking she didn't know about, she wasn't taught about motherhood or how to handle all this kind of stuff, marriage, motherhood, because she was so young and she didn't have anybody to really teach her, you know? Very
Yeah.
short window between her mom passing, her getting married, and becoming a mother. So I have a different understanding kind of who she is. And now I wonder what all she must have been going through, like what was going through her mind to be so young and to have all this happen in just a short few years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess back then we were just and it had to be in really in the Jim Crow era, trying to survive, just going from day to day. If we had if the male could get a job, or even if the female was working, it was a minimum, if anything, and they could be, if they didn't have any education, they could be kicked out of their staff, the what they had worked for.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people who was uneducated, they were religious, so they just used their religion as a way of navigating life for themselves. Because I remember my great grandmother lived to be 104 years old, and even after slavery was over, my oldest 90-year-old um cousin who I talked to some years ago said that she always if she saw a white person she called him massa. So
Mm.
she didn't even understand what freedom was. She had no
Wow.
idea from freedom. And she had two two daughters. Both of them was because she was actually native, a Cherokee, but she was white, but her husband was the dark man that she married, and so that she became a slave. And then after this freedom came about, then she was allowed um parent her children. But both she had two daughters, and they was very light. One married a dark man, my grandfather, and her other daughter married a very fair man, the same as her. And I never knew the two. They just split. And we would go to a small city like in Louisiana, and they never talked about each other, never talked to each other, their children, or anything like that. So a lot of things happen in mothers parenting their kids, or knowing how to parent their kids, or coming up. They're just feeling their way through. There was nothing definite for them. I mean, there were so many things that they could not do, so many things that they were trying to protect their children from. I can imagine now being home with my mother when the man broke in our house and murdered my sister. I can
Mm.
imagine that devastation because it absolutely uh changed my life.
Mm.
Because the rebel rouser, the person that would get you straight right quick and da da da, I had to stop and think how fragile the thread life holds.
Mm.
And my mother and I could never talk about that, and we were there in the house. And as I said, because he was black and she was black, I think he spent about 4.5 years. And he had murdered her son too, which was never even documented as a part of his sentencing. So my mother, I have to take my hat to that. She was an amazing woman. And she kept my brother became an attorney, my sister became a nurse, and I of course, went into law enforcement. So I just have to admire black mothers.
Yeah.
I mean, of all the things that they had gone through, they could find love
Mm.
for others.
I was thinking with you saying all of that, like and I forgot which episode it was that, but it made me think about all the many hats that we as women wear, you know. And you said like your mother didn't have an education. I don't know how far school my granny went. But I know that she was the matriarch of our family. I know that we all wanted to be like Miss Minnie Lee King, you know, and she was a loving woman, a God-fearing woman, a woman who would like, Verna said with my auntie Gloria, her mom, always like you can go over there, you can get fed. You know you gonna go
Yeah.
over there, you gonna be warm and you're safe. And it was that feeling, but it makes me think of all the hats that we as black women wear. And even if I wasn't born in the early 1900s or the 20s like my grandma, and the 40s like my mama, and all of those things in education, passed some of them by and they weren't able to get a formal education. We were doctors, we were counselors, we were,
Yeah.
teachers. We put on all of these hats for our children, for the children in the neighborhood who mother or parents may have been absent. We wore so many different hats. So that is like yes, in this day and age, we strive to, get these degrees and have all of these accolades, if you will. But when we think back to our model when it comes to the Black woman, I think we should be proud because we're very resilient and innovative and strong and filled with faith. Like
Yeah.
you said, the faith of it, they were most of our people were religious. So if they didn't have a formal education, they knew how to hit their knees and pray and ask God for direction and provisions. And God has He has not failed us yet. Um, and so I would like to ask the question to you, Miss Helen, to you, Verna. Um, um, if there was one thing that you could like, how could I put it? If there's one thing you could do that as a mother, you know, with in mind thinking of our own mothers, do concerning our children, but do it, you know, just a little bit more, or I don't want to say better, but like put some spinners and 50s on it. What would that be?
Well, first, let me clarify to a point. My mother took care of by herself, do our job, and also on welfare. But once we finished high school, she went back to school herself. And
Mm,
she would go to school and night and day and kept going until she graduated, and then she went and decided that she needed to get some more education. She went from a welfare mother to a caseworker. But all the
mm,
time, like you're saying, she was struggling, trying to make sure
yeah.
that we and she would whoop us. I'm gonna tell you
Mm-hmm.
so when you say when I think, well, no, I didn't. I wasn't as like that. But some of the things that I think
That's cute.
I just my mother was just relentless in and when I were you saying that I'm trying to think because we always different in our point of view. She was never a woman. She would help you. She would never hurt you. She was always there to care for someone. Me, what are you letting this woman come in the house? I mean, good God, Mama, you need to be you need to be taking care of us.
Mm,
Watching out for us putting this thinking woman in the house, or why are you giving us they're our food? And I'm telling you, I have to tell the truth, shame the devil. But she always said, no, what you give come back to you.
mm-hmm.
So I had to start thinking about that. So it helped me, Leslie, when I was dealing with my children, and my youngest daughter, she she would I'm working now, and she would go to school and she needed tutoring. And she tell the teacher, my mother's at work. I ain't got to do no tutoring. The woman, I just happened I was working swing shift in that morning. The woman called me, teacher. She said, Miss Cardi, she said, your daughter, she said she will not come to her tutoring because told me she didn't have to come because you wasn't
Mm,
gonna make her. I said, what?
mm.
Yes, that's what she told me. I said, oh. I said, well, you'll see her tomorrow at school. So
Okay.
when she got up that morning to go to school, and I didn't have to go to work until that afternoon. But I told her, I said, let me explain something to you. If you're not in that tutoring class today, I'm coming up to that school and beating your butt in front of all your friends. Now you get that. Do you
Mm.
want that to happen to you? Because you know I will be there.
Okay.
And the day the teacher called me, she said she was right there grinning. You talked to my mother, didn't you? So I had. she was stern with us
Yeah.
and what she wanted us to do.
Right.
You had to do. You can't stay out all night. You can't run around. I don't care what everybody else do. You cannot do that. So I had to learn. I didn't like it. I'm not telling you because when you're young, you want to get out and you got friends across the street. Their mother let them stay out all night long, and you got to come
Mhm.
in.
Right.
I didn't like that.
Mm.
But you know what? I appreciated it,
Yeah.
and try to raise my kids the same way. I learned from that
Mm.
you have sometime when your kids decide that they want. I put my oldest kids in a Catholic. She was in Catholic school. One day she came home. She told me, she said, "Mom," she said, "we had I spilled ink on the table, and I went up there and asked the teacher, would she let me clean it out?" And she said, "No, go to your seat." I said, "Well, if she don't want you to let her clean it off herself." That's my
Mm.
mouth, right? Not
Mm.
even. I get the call from the woman the next day. She said, "Don't you want? Do you your child to disrespect the teacher?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She said she informed me that when I told her to clean that ink off, that she went out and said, "Oh." I said, "Oh, my daughter informed me that she asked you for something to clean it off, and you told her no." I said, "So that's the only first I can think that you wanted to clean it off yourself."
Oh Lord.
so, what I'm saying to you is that there are times when you take up for your kid when
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
you see what I'm saying, and
Yeah.
so but true to form, the nun was she said, "You're right." She said, "I hadn't even thought about that." She did come up and ask me. And so we worked it out.
Mm.
You understand? Because my kids was as verbal as I was when it comes out to
Straight,
speak.
no
Yeah,
chaser.
they're straight.
Mhm.
They were straight.
Yeah.
So I'm so proud to be with you younger mothers, to let you know that I've observed you, and I know that we are all as mothers doing
Mhm.
what we need to do, but we could never have gotten where we are
Yeah.
without those mothers who didn't have nothing or no one, but just struggled through life and just kept going
Yeah,
and
because I think
believing.
from me with my mom,
Uh-huh.
she worked hard. She worked a lot. Um, there were periods of time when my mom worked nights and my dad worked days, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, um, Leslie, was your question like something that your mom did that you could have done
Like you could
just
do
a little
things,
different?
yeah,
Yeah,
different or
what?
better.
Okay,
Um,
listen to me. What?
I mean, there's a lot of things, but there are a lot of parallels that I see in my mom that I do, right?
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
when my kids bring their friends home, I make sure that they eat. I make
Right.
sure that I engage in, finding out who they are and where they come from,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what their intentions are. My mom did the same thing. Um, she made sure that we were educated. That was important to her. It's important to me. So I see a lot of parallels,
Yeah.
There's some times when I speak and I'm like, geez, Gloria just came out my mouth. You know what I mean? So there's there's those things. There's sometimes that I like when I was younger, oh, I would, when I have kids, I'm not gonna do, and then I find myself doing the exact same thing that my mom
Right.
would. So I don't know. I think we navigate certainly life different because of the times, right? So when we were
Right.
growing up, we didn't have all these cell phones and all that kind of stuff. And now it would be okay, I can track your phone or whatever. But when we were younger, it was you better get to the phone booth and spend that dime.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, if you think you're not going to have a dime, you better not buy that extra candy, right? Because you better have a dime to call. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
right, right.
Um, and there were times when I spent the night over my grandparents' house because I knew I wasn't going to make it from the South End to the CD on time. So
Right.
I go right on over to 4252
Okay.
and ask mom, can we spend a night?
Yeah.
And Minnie King, of course, would be like, yeah, did you call your mom? I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
call her right now. You know, and now it
Well, I
would
didn't have
be
that.
my kids, if you out somewhere, um, make sure you just call me and I'll make the decision on whether I want to come get you or whether you can spend the night there, right? So
Yeah.
there's just a lot of parallels that when you're younger you don't appreciate, but as an adult you
Mhm.
do.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that now being a grandparent, when my daughter calls me and tells me something about this is the fun part though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when my daughter calls me and tells me something about the grandparent about my grandkids, and I'm like, hmm, tell me about that.
Mm.
Right? Because this is deja vu for me, right? And when a child has a child that's just like them,
Right.
as a mother, you can look at it and be like,
Mm.
yeah, I've seen that before. Oh, they said what? Oh yeah, I heard that before.
Okay.
Can you believe? I'm like, I couldn't believe it when it happened the first time, but now with the second batch, yeah, I believe it. You
Mhm.
know, so
Uh-huh.
I don't know that there's much that I can think of that my mom did, and she wasn't perfect, uh, you know.
Mhm.
I do tell her about them four spankings that I got that I said, and I
Mhm.
say to her, I probably got more. I just don't remember them because I probably deserved them. But
Mhm.
these four that I got, I know I didn't deserve. And so those are probably the reason why they stick to me. And I try not to do that to my kids. I try to find out um, the whole story,
Yeah.
before discipline happens. So that's something that maybe but as parents, you live, you learn, and
You
your
do.
kids grow up. One thing I will say, and I always say this to people, is that when your kids are little, like 0 to 4, their idea of love is that you do these things for me and you provide for me, right?
Mhm.
And they love you unconditionally because that's what they know of love.
Mhm.
Excuse me. And then they start going to school and they see different dynamics of families and all that, and they start developing a different personality that you didn't see before in your
Mhm.
kids
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
they're making new friends and their world is expanding. And then there's some pushback because they see other kids doing things or
Mhm.
just navigating life differently with their parents and they want to try it too. Um, and then you get to a point where like middle school, all hell breaks loose and your kids don't like you and you don't like them, and that's fine. That's to be expected. Then they get to high school and they know they're going to be out of school, they're going to be on their own somewhat, and they kind of start coming around a little bit. But then when they hold on, y'all, I gotta okay, sorry, I was hearing background noise. But when they get out of school and they want you to come around, like, you know what I mean? Like maybe they're in college or they've gotten to, their personalities are shaping like who they are going to be in
Yeah.
this world, right? And they want you to come around and you're like, you can be friends now because you don't have the full day-to-day
Yeah.
24/7 responsibility of these kids and they just know your personality and you know theirs, then you can say, yeah, I guess I am one of your little friends, right?
Mm.
But all up to that point. And then your kids are the only ones who can judge your parenting,
Mhm.
right? Everybody else can say, oh, Leslie, you're the greatest parent in the world. You got this
Mhm.
going on, da 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 da. Your kids are the one that say, yeah, but at home, it's this way.
Mhm.
Or, yeah, she really is this way at home. This is who she is all the time. This is who she is as a parent because they're your kids and they're the only ones. Somebody could tell you how bad of a parent you are, and your kids would be like, no, but you don't understand. My mom, X,
Mhm.
Y, and Z, right? No matter what anybody else says, only your kids can judge your parenting,
Yeah.
no
That's a
matter
good
what it
point.
looks like from the outside. They're the only
Yeah.
ones. And when you become friends with your kids, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love my little raggedy babies. They love me too.
Okay. Yeah. That's good.
Yes.
Good point. I like that. You said that too. Like
Well,
your
yeah.
kids are the only ones
That
who could judge your
the only
parenting.
thing I can say
Hmm.
is that they love me most of the time. Because there are sometimes even now we don't agree, or we agree to disagree on
Yeah,
things that
but
I
that's
think.
not love. They might not like you sometime and you don't like
Yeah,
them
right.
sometime, but they love
But
you
I
all
always
the
love them.
time,
Yeah, we
right?
will always love each other. I will always be there for them whenever they need me, if I can be. And sometimes I'll let them hit a rough spot so they hopefully will learn from that. But that's a
Yeah,
part of love itself.
Mm.
yeah, it
Yeah.
I
is.
have one more question.
Well,
Yes,
I was going
ma'am.
to ask you, Leslie, to answer the last question.
Okay.
Okay, what question? What's the question? I mean, what's next? What are you saying?
I was gonna ask every to each one of us to answer this question before we will leave this earth. If there's one thing we could leave our children, what would it be?
Okay.
Like I'm talking like words of wisdom, not something tangible.
That's going to be easy for me because my answer always, um, whether, I leave anything physical or whatever, I want to leave with them the knowledge of God and who He is,
Mhm.
right? I want to leave with them to form a relationship for themselves
Mhm.
with the Lord, and don't leave this earth without, giving your life to God, giving your
Yeah.
soul to God. That is number one, regardless of, if I leave you silver spoons
Right.
or a garden, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think in essence, I would be having a very, very thorough religious mother. I would leave them to know that there is the divine creator is the only source that will be for you from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And that is, you can't, we're all flawed. So if you put your faith in another person who's flawed, then you're expecting for whatever. But if you have that source that you know that even if the end is not what you expect, but that you have something that you can count on that is above man, then and never doubt yourself. No matter how the struggle is, um, until the very end, you just keep fighting. You keep doing what you need to do. You keep follow your dream.
Mhm.
Know that miracles are real and they happen for you, but you have to have that tiny seed of faith
Yeah.
to magnify uh what you're doing, because in the end everybody's going one way, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So what would
Yeah.
yours be? Tell me.
I well, I definitely think we all are on this along the same lines. I'm really blessed and thankful that my two children, um, my two surviving children, know the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus as their savior. And I would just, continue, just tell them to continue seeking him, seek him because he may be found. And but I would want my kids to really not having gone through the things I've gone through in my life, I would really want my kids to do their best not to look through eyes of judgment. Like just have faith in people, you know, to
Mm-hmm.
to understand that we're all on this journey and we're all gonna go through our different things, but to just not just don't stop believing in humanity.
In
Yeah.
other words, are you saying that, and I'm trying to get clarification, is that as we live, things happen, but don't be judgmental. Don't realize that life is what it is, and that everyone deserves to be to allow their flaws and still work through them, and you can still look at them in a way that gives them some um a safety valve
Yeah,
to
sense
grow
of
and to
value.
become
People
better.
there, yeah.
Yeah,
We're all humans, we all deserve love and respect and be
right.
treated well. And, if we want to be treated with respect and love and people to be kind to us, then, do the same. You
And
never
so,
know what you're missing out on, when we snub our noses up or we push
Yeah.
past somebody.
Yeah.
um, you just never know what you're missing out on. You never know. It's like
yeah,
the
you
Bible
really,
says, be careful because you could be entertaining an angel. You just never know who's in the presence of you. And I just think that we're so callous, as
Yeah.
people.
That's
well,
one
it's a
thing that
challenge.
I do appreciate about my kids. Just looking, from a mother's standpoint, is that my
Hmm.
kids have all of them have an eclectic group of friends,
Hmm.
right? And I love how deliberate they are, especially I think Princess is the most deliberate about her friendships
Hmm.
because well, I guess I would say Precious too, but it as a mom, right? And as one of their little friends now, right?
Hmm.
I appreciate that. Like if Princess says that she carved out time for me,
Yeah.
I feel special
Yeah.
as not just her mother, but as her friend because I know how deliberate she is about her friendships,
Hmm.
right? And she has, friends from all different walks of life. I mean, I feel like all of my kids do have friends, in high places, low places, and all the places
Hmm.
in between. But um, like if you and Helen are my friends
Hmm.
and I'm Princess and y'all don't get along, but I still like you for the value you bring to the friendship, I'm I'm not going to ever put you two in a space together
Right.
because I know that you all don't get along. But I'm
Hmm.
going to make deliberate time and carved out time for you to spend with you. And then, with Helen to spend time with Helen because I value your friendships enough
Hmm.
to not bring strife into your life.
Right. Yeah.
And that's something that I look at and I'm like, man, if I had that, I,
Yeah.
as a youngster, um,
Right.
to be able to see we don't all necessarily have to kumbaya with one another for me to value our friendship,
Hmm.
you know. And I was talking to her one day about that, and she's like, "Mom, you're like that," but I didn't see it in me until I saw
Hmm.
it in her,
Yeah,
right?
that is a special thing, and
Yeah.
takes a special person to do that, and be that
One
way.
one of the things that you two had that I did not have when my mother traveled to East St. Louis, I didn't have the extended family. All those people were in the South, and she only had a cousin and a sister-in-law, and they were women who liked to go out to drink, liked to party, and my mother was definitely was her father's child who was a minister, and we went to church every 3 or 4 times a week, and when they wanted her to go out and be with them, absolutely she moved herself away from them and got to deal with people who were church like her. So for me to say I had family members that I could reach out to, that I could go to, they were hating on my mother because of her religious stance, refusing to go to taverns, refusing to drink any alcohol, and the harshest word I ever heard her say was dog-footed.
Mm,
So she was just too uh, uh, um, um, church-like, or they would say. So the friends that she acquired were women who were in the church who were like her, but they were not. They had their own families, so it wasn't like we could just go over and just be with them. Just say, it wasn't like that for me. But I'm just sitting there listening to you, I can recall that if we were had still been in the South, I would have had that connection also. So it was a little different, for me coming up. But the church women that would do anything for her, help her in any way, but they were her friends, and their kids were older than us coming up. So we just had the three of us, and we had our bricks. Just tell me how it was. So I mean, we were, out there. But I love hearing you talk about the connection. You could go over your grandmother. You could stop here and there, and have that love would be there for you.
Mm.
But my mother was just struggling on her own by herself, and she just had friends who were church-like with her, like she was, and that she gravitated to. But their children was older than we were, and while they would, when we were sick, they would spend the night with her, taking us through the crisis. However, we just didn't have that until I got old enough to have older women come into my life. Some had children, some had none, but they kind of pulled me under their wings to give me an understanding. So we all have different
Yeah.
life experiences, and so as I listen to you, I'm admiring that, but I realized that it was something that I might have would when I listened to you. Of course, I would that would have been fun, to have somebody that you, but that was not the case. We just had the three of us and our mother battling through life to make it.
Yeah, and one thing that I do appreciate too is like with my sons, my girls are back to back to back, right? So
Hmm.
my boys are my bookends, you know.
Oh, okay.
I feel like my oldest son probably feels like the typical older child, like I caught the brunt of everything because we were young as parents, you know.
Mm.
My younger son, because everybody else was like in sports or this, and this, and then he was born with, a heart condition. He, didn't get to do all the sports stuff, so he didn't get the sport parents, right?
Right.
He was just kind of like a tag along. But what I appreciate about them is that they love their mama.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
And they're very respectful to other mothers. You know, they have that kind of loving hand. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When a woman, especially a mother who is there, like my oldest son has a daughter, and he, you know, tries his best to like make things work with them that they're not together, right? As a father, but he respects his child's mother and other mothers, other
Mm.
women. And I love that about them. I love, because um it's a special thing with a mother and a son, you know.
It is.
It's a little bit different than mothers and daughters. We talk a lot because you have so much in common with your daughters, right? But it's a whole nother ball game with a mother and a son.
Why are you moving from side to
I don't,
side?
I'm not. That's this computer. I saw that. And I saw yours a little while ago too. Go, shit, Helen's is the only one that's not Miss Helen. Sorry.
That's
See
weird.
how that is doing that? I don't know if that's
Mm.
AI adjusting. And
Mm.
I don't have it on any special anything, but I'm sitting right here on this bed and I'm not moving. That's
Mm.
this thing. I don't know if it's going to, I
Well,
don't know. And I'm like, is anybody else seeing this? Because I'm, you know,
yeah, it
a
just
little
started, but
distracted. You'll see. Hopefully the video won't be doing all that, but I don't have it on any kind of AI adjusting anything. It's just doing something weird. I don't know.
Well,
okay.
I'm hoping in reviewing everything that we've discussed that someone will find something useful and helpful
Yeah.
in our conversation that they can relate to, and that can help them build a motherhood that they can gravitate to for their own children. Because parenting is hard, and I mean,
Yeah,
I've never read a book that has everything perfect.
right.
So you do things that and if you feel that you're not going to make any mistakes, then you'll even start parenting. It's
Mm.
something that you do the best that you can at, and if the love is there, it will always persevere in the end.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, with that, Leslie, tell us how we can find you, how we can get your wonderful book, A Million Brown Girls.
You can
If
find
you're going,
me.
which country you gonna be in next?
Oh, please. I don't know, but I'm definitely planning something. Stay tuned. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram at 1 million brown girls, 1MILLIONBRWNGRLZ, something like that. And I'm yeah, that's how you can find me. You could get my book on Amazon.com, or you could reach out to me directly and I will be glad to get you a copy.
Okay. My books I'm republishing, so stay tuned for that. I will let y'all know when that upcoming. We have the Black Authors Appreciation coming in March. The next podcast I should have the full dates and the whole itinerary. So that is coming up. Stay tuned. It's our fourth annual Black Authors Appreciation. I can't believe it. Praise God.
Wow.
Um,
Congratulations.
so thank you. Thank you. I'm looking forward to that and seeing who all the artists are this year. Y'all coming? You in there?
Yeah.
Okay. You in there, Miss Helen? I
Well,
think Miss Helen is
yes,
there.
and then let me say that you can reach me at meow Helen Collier meow.com. That's my website, and that I was honored to be here tonight, and that anytime we do it, it will always be straight with no chasers.
Okay.
I have the titles of uh as she said, a few going on, but I'm branding my voice so that I can speak with you through my books, and so that you will hear me speaking of my feelings along with my words. So we'll be here, and we plan to
Hmm.
be around so that you can get it
Yeah.
straight with no
No
chase.
No
chaser.
chaser. Okay, everybody. I hope you sat down and learned something. I hope that you like, subscribe, tell a friend, tell them to like, subscribe, and tell some friends so our family can grow. Make comments so that we know that you were here. Okay?
Okay, and African American Writers Alliance is one of the sources that you can reach me through. I keep forgetting about
Oh,
the
yeah, the AWA, African
AWOL.
American Writers Alliance. We are members of African American Writers Alliance, although our podcast is separate from African American
That's
Writers
right.
Alliance. But you will be able to see our podcast um, on their page, right?
Yep, that's right.
So as we make connections, y'all make connections. Let's get out here and do it. All right, all minds clear.
All minds clear.
All
All
right,
minds clear.
here. All right. Good
Mm.
night. Straight no chaser.
Good
Okay.
night.